Hello and welcome back to Customer Service School. My name is Stephen Merrill and I am your host, and I'm so excited to be with you all today. And our conversation today is going to be centered around the difference between effective leadership development and ineffective leadership development. So let's get into it. What does this mean? Well, yesterday I was having a conversation with a business owner, and he owns multiple businesses. And he asked me, he said, Steve, what does it mean to be an effective leader who develops their people? Like, sometimes I feel like I could be a little strong with my people. Sometimes I feel like I might come off a little harsh with my people, but it's all because I really am passionate about my business and the customer experience and customer service. And I'm not trying to be mean to them. I'm not trying to be rude to them, but how do you kind of distinguish between the two? And I thought that was a really interesting question. And I think it's something that a lot of you probably ask yourself. And so I broke it down in this way with him. Think about the first time that you were an employee or a team member with someone, right? Maybe it was an entry level position somewhere, could be in a restaurant, could be in retail, whatever it may be. My first job, I was working on my grandparents' Christmas tree farm. Yes, so in New Hampshire, we sell Christmas trees. That's a thing. So they have a huge farm, and people would come and cut down their own Christmas trees, and it was our job to shake out the trees to make sure any of the birds' nests or anything came out of them, and then you bale the tree up, which means it kind of gets wrapped up tightly so they can safely secure it to the top of their vehicle. And so I started to think back, and I explained to him. I said, "Okay, think about your first job, or maybe your first few jobs. As a team member, how were you treated? Did you have a manager, or did you have a boss that was really hard on you? And if they were hard on you, why were they?" Right? Because oftentimes managers and bosses think that, okay, I need to be stern with my people. I need to have a backbone with my people. I need to show them that, we're a great company here, a great culture, but we have to get things done. And again, there's nothing wrong with that. However, if you haven't established the boundaries and the standards from your hiring process, you're going to have people leave. So I explained to him the difference in this way. I said, think about it. Again, when you were an employee, when you were a team member, how were you treated and how did it make you feel? If you had a boss or a manager who was stern with you, but then they trained and developed you in the areas that they knew you needed support in, was that a problem? And the answer is no, because they were there to help you. But if someone is just really harsh to you and someone's just coming down hard, but then they're not taking the time to train and develop you, I said, that's the biggest difference. So think about it. Bill Marriott, the gentleman who started Marriott International, Marriott Hotels that we all know of now, he said, and one time he was speaking to one of my mentors who actually worked with him, and he said the only way to really have a healthy growing culture and a healthy growing company is through two things. The first is training, and the second is enforcement. So training and enforcement. And that's what Bill Marriott focused on. And what he meant by that was he had, and they still have as a company, very high standards. But the difference with that is nobody was caught off guard with those high standards, and nobody was caught off guard saying, well, I was never trained in this. You never took the time to teach me that. Because what would happen is from the time that they started interviewing candidates, they would set the standard and they would be really clear with their expectations of who they are and how they operate, and how they service customers and how they treat each other. And then from there, when that person would get hired and they were onboarding, those same principles of the high standards, the excellence, the customer experience, those were reinforced and restated. So that was never forgotten. And then when that person actually got onto the floor or they were in their position, that was seen and experienced everywhere. They saw the high level of standard. They saw their other team members, their managers, their leaders performing at those high levels. And so what did that do? That made that team member want to do the exact same thing. And so I explained to him this way, and you want to think again, the biggest difference between a leader who just seems harsh and people are like, man, that person is just really tough, and why can't we gel? Why doesn't it work? And if you're that leader, you might see people burning out and turning over. Think about it. You have high standards. There's nothing wrong with that. But ask yourself this question. Have you been clear with every single team member of the high standards that you have? And have you taken the time to train them in the ways in which they can deliver high level experiences to your customers? And have you taken the time to explain to them and train them in how they can serve each other as internal team members? Because if you have not done that, then you probably are coming down pretty hard on your people, and they don't understand why. Because they get it. They did the thing wrong. They brought a piece of the experience, but not everything. But if they're not being trained as to why or what they need to do differently, they're going to keep making the same mistakes, and they're going to be upset with you because they're going to say, man, my boss is just so mean or so rough. And so think about it. That's why so many bosses, and even that word boss has such a stigma, because typically when you think about it, a boss is thought of as rude, as demanding, as you do all these things and I'm just going to sit back and collect the paychecks, right? So the biggest difference again is set high standards. Nothing wrong with that. You can aim to be a perfectionist. That's fine. But you want to make sure that you are setting those clear expectations from the hiring process to the onboarding process to the continuous training and development process that you have. And so when your team member makes a mistake, because it's going to happen, you have an opportunity to develop them. Now, remember, training is one to many. So that's like a big onboarding seminar. You're speaking to 25 new team members, 100 new team members. That's one to many. You're going to train them in the culture, the values, etc. But development is when you see a team member miss an opportunity or mess something up, do something incorrectly, and you take the time to meet with them one-on-one and develop them through that process, right? So think about that. You won't feel as though you're being harsh if you're saying, hey, here's where you messed up, but let's do this together. I'm going to take my time and I'm going to develop you in this area and that area, because now you're taking the time to work and serve your team member. And that's really your goal as a leader. A leader's entire job is, yes, being a visionary or being the integrator, but it's really to develop other leaders. I'll say that again. A leader's job is to develop other leaders. So if you're just coming down on people and you feel like you're being harsh, you probably are if you're not taking the time to develop them. And your team members will appreciate it in the long run if you kind of correct the behavior, right? And you say, hey, this is our standard. We perform below it, but here's what we're going to do together to move forward and to learn from this. That team member is going to really appreciate you. And they're going to really say, wow, at this company, they don't just say that they care about us. They actually do care about us. And my manager, my boss, my leader just said that she or he is going to take their time to develop me. Wow, I really appreciate that. And so try that out. Just think about it. Now, the other side of this is your reaction to the situations. So I told this owner yesterday, because he said, I'm really passionate about it. So sometimes I kind of come off maybe a little like aggressive, or I kind of get loud. So you want to think back. When in your life have people treated you that way? Were you receptive of it? Were you open to that feedback? Or naturally, did you put up defensive barriers? Was your first reaction to protect yourself? That's probably what happened. And so explaining that you can care and you can care through standards, but you don't want to come off the handle at your people. You don't want to come out yelling at them, blaming them. Why did you do this wrong? I told you to do it this way and you did it that way, because they're not going to listen to you. They're going to be offended. Yeah, they did something wrong. I get it. They're going to be offended. They're going to be scared. They're going to be anxious. They're going to say, oh my gosh, I'm about to get fired. Even if they're not, that's what they're going to think. And so what happens is they're going to recede. They're going to get closed in. They're going to be walking on eggshells, afraid to do anything, afraid to go above and beyond for the customer because they're going to be worried that you might come at them because it's not in the policy. So if and when you see a team member do something incorrectly, because it's going to happen, your approach to it is key. So taking a team member aside, and you can always ask them these 3 words: help me understand. Those 3 words will really help them actually explain to you and feel confident that you're not going to come at them. You're not going to make them wrong. You're not going to embarrass them in front of the whole staff, but just take them aside. Have a one-on-one, even if it's 5 minutes. Say, hey, Joe, help me understand what happened here, right? Because as you know, since day one of us working together and us even talking, we have certain standards. And it looks like those standards weren't met in this situation. So can you help me understand what happened? That's a whole different approach than saying, Joe, you messed this up, you messed that up, the customer's unhappy. Man, what are you doing wrong? Why don't you get it? They're going to shut down. That's demeaning. That's disrespectful to that person. Your team members are people. Show respect to them. Show appreciation to them. Show them that, hey, Joe, I know things are going to happen. Listen, I made that same mistake too. So let's walk through it together. That's going to be a whole different approach. And I guarantee you, your retention, your loyalty, and your productivity of your team members is going to skyrocket when you just make these slight changes. Instead of coming down hard on people, make sure you're being inquisitive. Make sure you're asking them, hey, help me understand what happened there. These are our standards. I know you know those, but what can we do to make sure it doesn't happen again? They're going to have the answer, and they're going to learn and develop that way so much more effectively than if you come down hard at them. So all this to say, the biggest difference between effective leadership development and ineffective leadership development, first of all, is caring. Second of all, is communicating. And third is being able to ask questions, and asking questions not to make someone wrong, but asking questions so they think retrospectively and they think with additional perspective of, okay, you know what? I see what happened there. I see what my manager, my boss is saying, and I'm explaining it. And you know what? I found the solution. I'll make sure not to do that again. Right? So focus on actually taking time to care for your people. Focus on taking time to develop them. And you're going to see their approach to their daily operations completely change. So again, hope this episode of the Customer Service School helped you. And I look forward to seeing you on the next one.